breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warm from Low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and we've got a great podcast for you guys. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Thom Cunningham. He is a great writer over at runyourpool.com. He joins me a lot on my show, The Greg Peterson Experience, that airs weekdays over on VSiN, so it was nice to be able to get him on the podcast today. We're going to be taking a look at some trends that he's been finding in terms of teams that have been good to the over/the under, what he's been making the early season overs as well, a few games that he likes, and taking a look at teams that you can trust in on the run line and teams that you might not want to be trusting in on the run line and how to play run lines. I think that that's something that is very important to highlight, and we're going to be doing that with Thom Cunningham in segment number 2. In the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Tuesday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at JN_41. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way, that is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast by that 5-star review. I know that many of you guys have asked about first fives and why I really don't play them, and it's a very simple philosophy for me. I always want the full sample size when it comes to any sort of a game, and this holds true for anything in terms of NFL, college basketball, MLB, unless if there's just very clear evidence as to something that just continues to happen time and time again, like Georgetown in college basketball, they would always play one terrible half of basketball, and then they would play one really good half of basketball, so you would either fade them in the second half after a good first half, or you'd back them in the second half after one terrible first half. That's the way that I would be playing that, but the reason why is because typically when it comes to the game of baseball and really any sport, things just always come back to the mean. Part of it is as well because you'll notice with regards to my game breakdowns, which I do every single game on this podcast, I do put a lot into handicapping the bullpen, and in the first 5, you're not really going to be taking too much of a look at the bullpen. And when it comes to things like yes run first inning, no run first inning, first 5, over, under, what have you, those are bets that could be heavily influenced by just one singular play. Now, that could happen in any game, but I would rather have another 8+ innings to be able to reverse course for an error that was maybe made in the 3rd inning. Like, say that you've got a game in which the total is 7.5. I'm just spitballing a number, and the first 5 total is 4. You take a look at the under. One error in like the 2nd inning that causes a few runs to score, that could completely torpedo that under. Meanwhile, if you take a look at the full game, yeah, that error is still going to hurt, but you still have a chance to be able to have redemption happen with that as well. So that's a big reason why I do take a look at the full game. It's less likely to be influenced by 1 or 2 wonky plays. It's a little bit more just taking a look at the full sample size as well, because if I were to play first 5s, I would be trying to extrapolate the numbers that we do see in the first 5 innings, not necessarily as much in the full game. Now, guys are betting against just starters alone, and that's an entirely unique handicap, and that's a completely different data set than what I currently use. So that's a big reason why I do go full game rather than first 5. I've also just, frankly, found a lot of success betting full games. I had none whatsoever trying to bet first 5s. If you have a lot of success betting first 5s and none full game, I would encourage you to just bet first 5s as well. It's just what works for you, and what works for me is full game. So that is why I really don't dive into first 5. So hopefully that cleared that up a little bit. And if you have additional questions, do fire those in at GN_41. We are here for the long haul in terms of taking a look at baseball. It's a season that goes for north of 200 total days when it's all said and done. So anytime you have a question, whether that's for tomorrow, whether that's a week from now, a month from now, always do fire those in. But let's take a look back at everything that we did see in Major League Baseball on Monday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The New York Metropolitans get it done against the LA Dodgers by a count of 8-6, and this is the first time the Dodgers have been sub 500 this deep into the season since 2018, so it has been a while since the Dodgers have had these sorts of struggles. And for the Mets, not necessarily the fact that David Peterson gave a great start is why they won this game. Peterson gets a win while surrendering 6 runs in 6 innings while giving up 3 home runs. We always hear about tough luck losers. That's a very fortunate winner, in my opinion, for the Peterson family, as he allowed Freddie Freeman to get his second and third home runs of the campaign, Max Muncy his seventh, but Dustin May got destroyed. 5 runs surrendered in 5 2/3 innings, including home run. Going deep for the Metropolitans, Daniel Vogelback, his first home run of the season. From there, Alex Vesey out of the bullpen gives up 3 runs in a third of an inning. You did have Justin Brule be able to lend a scoreless inning. Phil Bickford, Shelby Miller, they combined for 2 scoreless innings, but the Mets bullpen did their part, as you had Drew Smith and Brooks Raley combined for 2 scoreless innings, and Adam Ottavino comes in, he gets a save with a scoreless ninth. The Atlanta Braves hold the San Diego Padres scoreless 2-0. Final on this one, as for Atlanta, Austin Riley took Ryan Weathers deep for his 4th home run of the season, and that's all the scoring there would be in this game. Weathers gives out those 2 runs, goes 6 innings. From there, Brent Honeywell scoreless inning. Reese Knorr was able to give you 2 scoreless innings, but for the San Diego Padres, nothing doing on offense. Max Fried, fresh off the injured list, looked very good. 5 scoreless innings. Dylan Lee, 2 scoreless innings, and then Jesse Chavez, AJ Minter. They both supply a scoreless inning as the Padres. They go 0-4 with men in scoring position. It was a rain delay filled game out in Boston for Patriots Day, but the Angels, they get it done by a count of 5-4. They scored 5 runs in the first 2 innings. They would not score after the rain delay, as for Boston, Ryan Bayo, not the start he was looking for. Gives up 5 runs in 2 2/3 innings, including a bomb going deep for the LA Angels. Hunter Renfroe gets his 4th home run of the season. And in super long relief, Cutter Crawford looked really good. He goes 6 1/3 innings after the rain delay, gives up 1 hit, no earned runs. Problem was, for the Boston Red Sox, they went 2 of 14 with men in scoring position. Due to that super long rain delay, Shohei Ohtani was only able to go 2 innings, gives up 1 run along the way. And for the Angels, bullpen wasn't terrible. Tucker Davidson, 3 1/3 innings, he gives up a run. Aaron Loup gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. I'm sure that anyone that had the run line was not happy about Carlos Aceves giving up a run in an inning, but Matt Moore, Jose Quiada, they were both able to end a scoreless inning, so the Angels, they get it done there. The Miami Marlins send the San Francisco Giants down to 5-10 to begin the season, 4-3. It was a Miami Marlins win, as for San Francisco, they came into this game averaging 2.4 home runs per game on the road. None in this one. It's Logan Webb. He did allow 1, as he gives up 4 runs in 6 2/3 innings, as he was taken deep by Ode Soler, his 5th home run of the season. From there, Scott Alexander, 4 outside the bullpen, scoreless, but for Jesus Luzardo, he gets taken out of this game early, 4 1/3 innings, gives up 3 runs, did not have it. From there, the bullpen allows not even a single run, but they allowed just 1 hit in that time span. Matt Barnes, Dylan Floro, AJ Puck all lend a scoreless inning. Andrew Nardi, 5 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. The Walker Texas Rangers get it done, as both teams have played on Sunday Night Baseball. One on Monday, the Rangers, they won by a count of 4-0 as Jacob deGrom, 4 scoreless innings. He did not allow a hit, but he was lifted early due to the fact that he was feeling something in his arm that was not quite right, so he got lifted early. So Dane Dunning, super long relief, he looked good. 4 1/3 innings, gives up just 1 hit, no earned runs before Jose Leclerc able to get the final 2 outs of the game. Pair of home runs for the Rangers off of Jordan Lyles, as Josh Young and Marcus Semien get home runs number 3 of the season. For Semien, second day with a home run, as Lyles, he went deep into this game. He gives up 4 runs, only 1 of which was earned. He was hurt by an error by Hunter Dozier, actually a pair of errors by Hunter Dozier, and he does give up those 2 home runs before Taylor Clark is able to end a scoreless inning. But the Kansas City Royals, nothing doing with their offense. Nothing doing for the Tampa Bay Rays offense, as they've now lost 3 out of their last 4. They fall to the Cincinnati Reds 8-1. Another pitcher was lifted early, as Hunter Green, he went 3 scoreless innings. Velocity was clearly down, so he gets lifted, as you had Ian Gabo, Alex Young, along with Buck Farmer, all provide 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. You then, from there, have Kevin Harrigan give up a solo home run in his 2 innings of work. As for the Tampa Bay Rays, it was Josh Lowe who got his 4th home run of the season. Came too little too late, though. The team was down 8-0 as the Rays, they had opportunities, but they went 0 of 10 with men in scoring position. Jalen Beeks takes a loss for this one, which is tough luck for him. Gives up 1 run in 3 innings in an opener appearance, as Kevin Newman gets his 2nd home run season. From there, Cooper Criswell gives up 4 runs over the course of 4 innings, and he had 3 runs surrendered in the 1 inning of work by Kevin Kelly. The Arizona Diamondbacks go on the road, and they take it to the St. Louis Cardinals, 6-3 the final. It's the Diamondbacks who have started out 10-7 and 7-10 for the St. Louis Cardinals, as Merrill Kelly was terrific in this one. No walks, 1 run allowed over the course of 6 innings for Captain Jack Flaherty. 3 walks, 4 runs surrendered, including home run in his 6 innings of work going deep for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, his 2nd home run season. Pavin Smith a little bit later on gets his 1st home run of the season, as that was surrendered by Andre Palante, who gave up 2 runs over the course of an inning. Genesis Cabrera 2 scoreless, but damage had been done as you did have Alec Burleson go deep for his second home run season. That comes off of newcomer Jose Ruiz, who, with this appearance, he was able to lower his ERA as it was while he was with the Chicago White Sox north of 22. It has lowered all the way to a 1929, which is the year of the Great Depression and the beginning of it. So he's got a Great Depression ERA as of right now. That's not good, but Andrew Chafin and Miguel Castro, they both go for a scoreless innings. They both have a sub-250 ERA, so going much better for them. The other team from Sunday Night Baseball, the Houston Astros, they get a 9-2 win over the Toronto Blue Jays as for the Blue Jays, pair of solo home runs, Santiago Espinal gets his first of the campaign off of Seth Martinez, and then Matt Chapman gets his 4th home run season. That came off of the starter and Christian Javier, and that's the lone run that Javier would give up. Got his pitch count jacked up, so he only goes 5 innings, 97 pitches, gives up 1 run. From there, Phil Maton, 2 innings scoreless. Ryan Stanek, a scoreless inning, and Seth Martinez allows that solo home run to Santiago Espinal, but got a pair of gentlemen that were able to lend a home run for the Houston Astros as Corey Julks was able to go deep. Now his home run number 2 of the season for him off of Kevin Gausman, and Gausman allows one to Jake Myers, his first, as Gausman got completely lit up. 8 runs, 7 of which were earned in 4 2/3 innings. Anthony Bass, currently in the news for a popcorn incident that is what viral on social media with his children, gives up a run in an inning. So back-to-back days where he didn't get the job done and got taken hook, line, and sinker. But Zach Pop, scoreless inning. Adam Simber, 1 1/3 inning scoreless. I guess things were popping out there in Houston. Hopefully you enjoyed the jokes. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they get it done against the Colorado Rockies in convincing fashion. 14-3 the final. Rich Hill, actually a really good start. He allows 1 run in 6 innings. He's 43 years old, oldest active starter in the big leagues, and he gets a W as Chris Bryant did take him deep. 2nd home run season. Past that, he was very rock solid. You did have 2 runs given up in 1 1/3 innings by William Crowe before get the final outs of the game from Jose Hernandez. 5 outs scoreless, and for the Pittsburgh Pirates, pair of home runs in this one as you had Kyle Freeland give it up to Andrew McCutcheon, 3rd home run season, and then Jack Swazitsky gets home run number 2 of the campaign for Swazitsky. That came off of Alan Trejo, the backup shortstop, who allowed a run in that inning as Kyle Freeland, just a start that he wants to forget. He got 8 outs, and he gave up 9 runs, 7 of which were earned. Ty Block gives up 4 runs in 2 innings, only 1 of which was earned, as there was a pair of not so savory errors out there by third baseman Eliurius Montero, as fielding has been an issue for the Colorado Rockies recently. Connor Siebold, 2 1/3 innings scoreless, and Jake Bird, he did give a scoreless inning, but Colorado unable to get this one done. The Cubs, they are able to get it done. 10-1 the finals. Patrick Wisdom, he's now got 5 home runs in the last 4 games as he goes deep twice. 7th and 8th home runs of the season. One comes off of Kyle Mueller. The other comes off of Adrian Martinez as Martinez allows 4 runs in 2 2/3 innings. The starter in Mueller, he gives up 13 hits, 6 runs in 4 innings, including that other home run. You'd have Jersey Familia, lend a scoreless inning, and Chad Smith, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, but the A's could not get much off of Hayden Wesneski. Wesneski gives up 1 run in 7 innings. Brandon Hughes, Julie Merriweather from there. They're both able to supply a scoreless inning, and if you're taking a look at Major League Baseball right now, as we had a little bit of an abbreviated day on Monday, pair of rainouts between the Guardians and the Tigers and the Phillies and the White Sox, which means that we're going to get 17 games on the betting board for this MLB Tuesday because both of those games are going to be made up on Tuesday, but we are seeing the overs continue to reign supreme. 130 overs to 106 unders thus far this season. I believe that the total amount of pushes is at 10, so 55.1% of games are going over, and favorites, they're having a tough time covering the run line despite the fact that they're doing very well on the money line. Favorites are 152 and 93 straight up. That is 62% straight up, but they have had 38 wins where the win was by 1 run to not cover the run line. And if you're looking at the last 7 days in Major League Baseball, we have been noticing a lot of these 1-run wins by the favorites. Favorites 58 and 33 in this time span, winning at a clip of 63.7%, but there have been 19 of those wins that came by 1 run, and over the last 7 days, 47 overs, 41 unders, and I believe we've had 3 pushes in that time span, so about 53.5% is the over rate there. So that's what we're seeing in Major League Baseball right now, and that's what we all saw on Monday. Now let's turn it forward to Tuesday and just get a little bit of an outlook on totals and how to play run lines with Thom Cunningham, who does great work over at runyourpool.com. He joins me next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units return, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their NBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and it is great to be joined by our guest as Thom Cunningham does a great job looking at a little bit of everything from the MLB, NBA. I'm sure that he is going to be locked in when it comes to college and NFL season as well, but on top of that, does a great job taking a look at the Oscars as well. He was my main expert on VSiN during that time of year. You've seen him a lot on my show, The Greg Peterson Experience, so great to get him in podcast form today, as it is Thom Cunningham joining me. He is a writer over there at runyourpool.com, and he is on Twitter at _TJCK all together. And Tom, great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Greg. Really appreciate it.
Really appreciate you joining me. And Tom, I know that you do a great job following all these trends. I know that your Twitter handle, you're always posting up a lot of what we've been seeing recently. And what have you made out of the start of the season for Major League Baseball? Because typically we see a lot of unders. We typically see a lot of lower scoring games. And this year, for the first 2.5 or so weeks of the season, we've been seeing about 55% or so of games go over, which is quite a change of what we typically get.
Just to rattle off a few teams who have gone over a lot lately, the Detroit Tigers, they've gone over in 8 of 10. The Tampa Bay Rays might be the hottest team in all of baseball. They have an OU of 10-4-2. The Giants are another one. The Rangers, they've gone over 10 times already. But with all that said, you do kind of have to be careful with some of these over-unders. And in particular, there are two teams that really stand out to me. That's the Colorado Rockies and the Oakland Athletics. And why do they stand out? Well, Colorado averages 11.3 runs per game at home. And Oakland, they average 10.9 runs per game at home. So you would think, okay, with that many, runs being scored in these venues, you would think the over hits a lot for these teams, but that's not the case. So with Colorado, of course, they average over 11 runs per game at home, but they're just 8-8 on the OU this year, and they're only 4-3 at home. So what that tells me, I mean, I'm sure this is pretty obvious, though, is that most of Colorado's home games, the run total, it's going to be a lot higher than most other places. You're probably looking anywhere double digits, easy. Anywhere from really 10 to 11.5 would be my guess. So, you look at Colorado and you see, oh, wow, they average over 11 runs per game at home, so they must go over a lot. That's not necessarily the case. And it's the same thing with the Oakland Athletics. They average over 10 runs per game at home, but they're just 4-4-1 on the over-under at home this year. Now, they're 10-5 over-under overall. You see, well, Oakland, they're 10-5 on the OU this year. They average over 10 runs per game at home. Just be careful with some of these venues. You look at the stats, you say, oh, a lot of runs are scored in this venue, or this team goes over a lot. But that's not necessarily the case. So, as we sit here and we talk about the run total market, always be mindful of what number the sports book is actually giving you in comparison to some of these records and betting stats that you do see out there.
No question about it. And we do notice that there are some very hitter-friendly ballparks. You mentioned Colorado. When you go to elevation, you're going to be finding double-figure totals. Meanwhile, Oakland, the marine layer is out during the nighttime, and that is why you're always going to be seeing some lower totals with those as well. So I do think that is something very good to be mindful of, as Thom Cunningham, who does great work over at Run Your Pool, is joining me on the podcast. And Tom, I know that you're out in the southeast part of the country, I think is very fair to say. And I know that there has been a lot of intrigue with one of those teams out there in the Tampa Bay Rays. They are going to be taking on the Reds on Tuesday. Now, it's a bit unclear as to what we are going to be getting in this game. There's currently no numbers up on this game because the Tampa Bay Rays, they pretty much had a bullpen game on Monday. On Tuesday, it figures to be something of the same. It's just a question of whether you're going to have Taj Bradley as a bulk guy on Monday or on Tuesday. We're doing this before the Monday game went final, so we are a little bit unsure there. But what have you made out of the Tampa Bay Rays run thus far this season? And do you think that they might be getting into a little bit of a sell high spot right now after a just blistering start to the season against, let's call it what it is, lesser competition?
I don't know if I'd sell them. It's Tampa Bay. They're always relevant each season. They're a good ball club. They're always competitive. They're always in a playoff hunt or getting into the playoffs. So I don't know if I'd sell on them. If anything, I might actually buy into them a little bit with the division. But I look at Tampa Bay and they do two things very consistent. They go over the run total a lot. I just mentioned they're 10-4-2 in the over-under this year. But they do have the best run line record in all of baseball at 13-3. And I think what's kind of impressive about that too is a lot of those run lines, they're the favorite at -1.5 rather than +1.5. So I think that's pretty impressive, and you're probably going to see some, obvious plus value if you're taking a favorite to cover a run line in baseball. So I would just kind of look at Tampa Bay in that regard. Yeah, sure, they go over the run total a lot, but there is value in the run line when they're the favorite. And at 13-3 with a run line record, the best in baseball this year, that's kind of where I would go with Tampa Bay. And speaking of just kind of the Southeast in general, I kind of want to go to the Miami Marlins real quick, because we talk about all these teams going over a lot. And that is the case. But Miami, they're kind of the polar opposite right now of the rest of the league. They go under a lot, especially at home. So at Lone Depot Park, 6.1 runs are being scored per game. That's good for a 2-6-2 over-under record. So just keep that in mind, too, when we're talking about the run totals here, that Miami, they are actually one of the teams that go under quite often in baseball. So kind of the opposite of what we were talking about.
And I do think that that's so good that you bring up the run line as well, because there are certain teams that have been very good on the run line in recent years. One team that I've talked about a lot are the LA Dodgers, and then the Houston Astros, even though they've had a nice straight-up record since the beginning of the 2022 season. Certainly it's been a little bit more rough for them to begin the season. They were a team that last year was playing a whole bunch of one-run games. How important do you think it is to take a look at this? Because there are certain teams that I'm going to be very hesitant to back them on the run line. Meanwhile, a team like the LA Dodgers, I'm going to be backing them a lot on the run line because it feels like they either lose outright or they win by multiple runs without a lot of in-between, which can save a lot of juice when you take a look at these big numbers that you're going to be laying with a team like the Dodgers.
Yeah, and you want to look at favorites, I think, for obvious reasons when you're betting the run line, because when you look at underdogs, you're going to be paying pretty expensive minus value for the most part. Not all the time, but for the most part. So I think two teams kind of fit that bill right there. I look at the Chicago Cubs. They have the fourth best run line in baseball at 9-5, but you wonder how many of those games were they the underdog? And as a bettor going into that game, are you willing to pay the minus value for an underdog covering the run line? So that's one team you got to think about. And then the other is Arizona. The Diamondbacks, Greg, have the second best run line record in all of baseball. They're 11-5 against the run line. But again, how many of those were they the underdog? And are you willing to pull the trigger on a hefty minus value? I'm kind of with you in the regard when you look at teams like the Dodgers, for instance, who had a good run line, and more times than not, they were the favorite. So at -1.5 run line, you're going to get really good plus value. Maybe not really good, but you'll get plus value, which is always good. In terms of the run line market, look, if you want to go with underdogs, feel free to do so. But I look at teams that are favored to win because you're going to get plus value in that market. So like you said, the Dodgers are one team. I look at the Yankees. They're 10-6 on the run line this year, which is the seventh best in all of baseball. So I think the Yankees would also fall into that category of, teams that more times than not going to be heavy favorites. Look at them in the run line market because you're going to find the best value there.
Absolutely. I think that that's such good advice there. I'll occasionally look at a +1.5 on a run line when it comes to a big underdog, and they're getting like even money. They're getting plus money rather than backing a team that's like laying -230 or something like that. But when it comes to a rather pick'em game, I don't have any interest in taking a run and a half and like -180 or something like that, to your point. So I think that we're in agreement there. As Thom Cunningham, who does great work over at runyourpool.com, is joining me on the podcast. And Tom, we've got ourselves a more than loaded slate of baseball on Tuesday, because typically a loaded slate is all 30 teams are in play, but we're currently seeing right now that we're going to be getting 17 games due to the 2 rainouts that we saw on Monday. Are there any games that really catch your eye in particular, whether there's a trend or two that you like, or just a team or two in general that you're either looking to back or looking to figure out a little bit more on?
Yeah, sure. So there's 2 games I'm kind of looking at right now. That's the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Angels. I do think under 9 is a pretty good play. This kind of trickles into last year, but the Yankees at home go under a lot. You would think, okay, well, Yankee Stadium, you could easily hit a home run there, and the lineup the Yankees have, how would the run total not go over? But it goes under quite often. The Yankees, they've gone under in 6 of 7 games when taking on the AL West at night. In Yankee Stadium, the OU is 3-7, so only 7.2 runs are being averaged per game in Yankee Stadium this year. And then when you're talking about the Angels, The Angels, they've gone under in 4 of 6 games overall, and then the under has actually hit in 4 or 5 meetings between both teams. So I do think there's a lot to like about the Yankees just going under in general at home this year. But in this game in particular against the Angels, just for the reasons stated, they go under a lot when taking on the AL West at night. The Angels have gone under a lot recently, and then the under just seems to hit when these two teams take the diamond. So I think under 9 for Yankees and Angels is one play to watch, and then the other, the Baltimore Orioles and the Washington Nationals. That should be a fun little series there for the fans there. But I like under, and I like Baltimore's money line. Baltimore's money line was minus 130 last I saw. That could climb up. You might see those odds get a little bit more expensive. So if you like the Orioles now, take them. They've won 4 or 5 meetings against Washington. And the Nationals, they've lost 8 straight games when taking on an AL East team with a winning record. So they really struggle against good teams in the AL East, and good teams in the AL East are typically really, really good. And then the under I do like as well. Look, Baltimore, they're 11-4 in the OU this year. They've gone over a lot. They've actually gone over more times than any team in baseball this year. But for some reason, when the Orioles and the Nationals face off, they go under a lot. Baltimore, they've gone under in 10 straight games against the NL East. So whenever they're taking on that division, they just tend to go under as well. The under's hit in 5 straight meetings between these two teams. So I know there's over-under bettors. They might like Baltimore to go over a lot. They're 11-4 on the OU this year. But when these two teams take each other on, they go under a lot. So if you want to take the total market here, I recommend going under. But I do think Baltimore's money line at minus 130 is a cheap and safe enough bet for this game.
I think that that's a good point that you make as well with the Washington Nationals and the Baltimore Orioles game. That's one that I certainly am taking a look at. And on the flip side for that as well, what do you make out of some of these offenses that have been slow to get going? Because I've been taking a look at unders in teams like the Detroit Tigers, the Washington Nationals, and I take a look at both of these teams, and the pitching isn't great, but it's far from terrible. But both of these offenses just have been stuck in the mud, and I feel like these are two teams that long-term could be very good to the under this year.
I kind of don't know what to make of the Cardinals right now either. And I look at their OU, and they're 5-10-1, and they've really been struggling against National League teams this year. They've been struggling at home this year. I'm kind of waiting for them to get it going as well. I don't know if this is going to be a long-term bet for the rest of the season, kind of with the teams you just mentioned, Greg, but I think right now I'm looking at the Cardinals under a lot. Like I said, they've gone under in 10 of 16 games, and they've just been underachieving a little bit. And look, it's early. It's only April. I'm sure they'll get it going at some point. But the Cardinals have kind of been a head scratcher for me. I haven't had a lot of conviction in them. And then, you look at some of the stats here, and it tells you that runs aren't being scored in their games. So I would just kind of eye the Cardinals right now in terms of recent teams that are going under a lot.
No doubt about it. It has been interesting to take a look at what we've been getting out of St. Louis, because I do like their offense. It has been a case where the bullpen has been a tad bit shaky from time to time, and guys like Miles Mikolas and company do need to step it up in the starting rotation. They aren't aces like our good friend Thom Cunningham, who is an absolute ace when it comes to being able to take a look at a little bit of everything. You do movies, you do sports, football, basketball, baseball, you name it, you cover it. Tennis as well, cannot forget about that. I know you join me a lot on my VSiN show, The Greg Peterson Experience, about once every 2 weeks. Always great to get you on there. It was great to get you on the podcast today. So let the good people at home know they're able to follow you on social media and just what's all on tap for you and just getting a little bit more of your work in general.
Yeah, sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at _TJ. KC _ and check out runyourpool.com. Got a lot of great contests on there. Got an F1 contest in the works for the Miami Grand Prix, Kentucky Derby as well. Of course, NHL and NBA playoffs are going on. So definitely check that out. But otherwise, you can follow me on social. And as you just mentioned, Greg, when I come in and appear on your on your show. So I'm real excited for the next opportunity to come on, and maybe we'll talk movies way down the road. I don't know about next time, but months from now, we can talk a little bit more about the Oscars. And I will say, Greg, I've already got a few movies under my radar for forecasting the 2024 Oscars. So we're ahead of the game there.
And the good news is I will be less salty about the 2024 Oscars since there's going to be no Minions movie that gets completely screwed over by the Oscars committee. So that brings joy to my heart. It won't be until 2025 or beyond that I once again become a very unhappy camper with the Oscars committee. So there is that. And Tom, he does amazing work taking a look at a little bit of everything. His social media is about as active as it gets. You think that I don't sleep? Well, Tom, he's posting out trends at 3, 4 a.m., so that is absolutely tremendous on his part. And was great to be able to get Thom Cunningham on the podcast today. Big thanks to him for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Tuesday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. It's always great to get Thom Cunningham aboard. Typically joins me on the Greg Peterson Experience on VSiN. This was the first time getting him on this podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, and was great to be able to get him aboard. He does amazing work over at runyourpool.com, taking a look at everything from football, basketball, tennis, you name it, he does it, including some movies. So big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Tuesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at @unit_81. We are going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games. Any interleague games are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy, though. Today is a little bit of a wrinkle. The two rained out games from Monday, those are at the bottom after the interleague games, just because when the betting board is set, they weren't thinking that there were going to be two extra games, so they just get added at the bottom. And I will do those games a part of the doubleheaders just all together, so that way I'm not going through analysis of the same guys twice and just wasting your time with that. So we're going to be going about it in that manner, and we start out with my DK Nation write-up pick of 901-902 on the betting board. The San Francisco Giants are on the road facing off against the Miami Marlins. Edward Cabrera is going to be going for Miami, and Alex Wood is on the bump for San Francisco. And San Francisco, and between a -107 to a -115 favorite, and between even money and -105, your number on the Marlins. The total on this game, it is 8. The under is -115. The over is -105. Seeing a straight 7.5 out there. Over is -120, and the under is even. Right up pick here. It's going to be on the Miami Marlins. I feel like they should be a little bit north of a -110 favorite. So I do think that you've got good value on this money line. You got a pair of guys that are going to need to pick it up in terms of command. Ever since the start of the 2022 season, Edward Cabrera, 5.1 walks per 9 innings. Now, Edward Cabrera in that time span has been quite dominant, being able to get 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.27 ERA. And I did notice that last year, he actually had an ERA that was right around a 4.5 at home compared to a $1.50 on the road. I do think that that is going to iron out. He gave up 8 home runs in 35 1/3 innings at home, 2 bombs in 36 2/3 innings on the road. I do think that we are going to be seeing that come back to the pack a little bit more. And then for Alex Wood, he's given up 5 walks in 7 2/3 innings thus far this season as well. But the fact that he hasn't been able to deliver much length this year, I feel like he's even worse than that of Edward Cabrera. Because while the Miami Marlins bullpen has been rough, they're ranked right around 22nd in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. The Giants, 28th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA, north of a 6 ERA. Entering into yesterday, and Alex Wood just really hasn't been good. Last 3+ seasons, ever since really the beginning of the 2019 season, he's got an ERA of a 4.98 on the road, giving up about 1.7 home runs per 9 innings. He actually gets some relatively good swing and miss stuff, right around 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but really had his struggles on the road last season, especially with a 5.51 ERA, giving up 12 home runs in 67 innings. Now for Miami, they are averaging the fewest runs per game of any team in the league, but they do a good job of moving the line. They're very much playing to their ballpark, which is incredibly pitcher-friendly. If you take a look at ballpark factors, they're a bottom 10 ballpark for being able to drive the ball out, which I think is going to be hurting the San Francisco Giants going into yesterday. They're averaging 2.4 home runs per game on the road, by far the most in the big leagues, and I do think that we're going to be seeing regression with that. And for the Giants, it is a little bit of an all-or-nothing team in which they use those platooning splits to be able to get those home runs. I don't think that when it's all said and done, you're really going to see anyone with north of 30 home runs on this Giants team, but I think you're going to see a lot of guys with like 20 or so, like Jock Peterson, Thairo Estrada, J.D. Davis, Michael Conforto, Brandon Crawford, throw in there David Villar, all these guys between 2 and 4 home runs thus far this season. You've had Estrada and J.D. Davis both hit north of a 300. But for Miami, you've got Luis Arraez doing an amazing job moving the line, hitting about a 450. Brian De La Cruz, Garrett Cooper, they're both hitting right around 300 now. Bottom of the fold for the Miami Marlins needs to pick it up. Nick Fortes, Jesus Sanchez, Gene Segura, Garrett Hampson, only below the Mendoza line of 200. I do think that Segura is going to be able to pick it up quite a bit. And for the Miami Marlins, they do have some trouble spots in their bullpen, but when you're able to get into guys like AJ Puck, even someone like an Uskar Brzobin is not too bad. They are dealing with the injury to JT Chargois. They're a little bit more formidable than the San Francisco Giants bullpen, which Rogers squared is just not doing it for them. Scott Alexander, cumulative of all their okay options, but I do think that Edward Cabrera has really good stuff as a young guy. I think that he's going to be able to lock it down with the walks, be able to keep the ball in the yard, which is big against the San Francisco Giants team. So my write-up here is going to be on the Marlins on the money line. Set them more around about a -111, -112. And with regards to the total, I did set it at 8.6. I do think that both of these offenses are going to be able to get a little bit of something going, and I think that the Fish, they utilize small ball, and I do think that they're going to be able to get to Alex Wood. So looking at the over in my write-up here, that is going to be on the Marlins money line, 903, 904 on the betting board. It is the Arizona Diamondbacks on the road facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals. Jordan Montgomery is going to be going, and Dre Jemison is on the bump for Arizona. Arizona between a +145 to a +152 underdog, anywhere between -162 to -170, your number on St. Louis. And total on this game, it is 8. The over is anywhere between -110 to -120. The under is anywhere between even and -110, seeing a straight 8.5 out there as well. That under is -120, and the over is even. I did set my total at 8.8, so I'm going to be looking at an over in this circumstance as well. And with the Arizona Diamondbacks, I did need at least a +217 to be able to take a shot here. I feel like the Cardinals should be a much more substantial favorite if you're looking at the run line of the Cardinals. Finding it at a +120, I was willing to lay more like a -120. Dre Jemison, I recognize that at the big league level in his very small sample size has looked okay, but you go back to his minor league numbers, he had north of a 5 ERA. I just don't think that this is very sustainable at all. He's got 5 walks in 12 and a third innings, giving up 2 home runs, and yet he's got a .146 ERA. His fielding independent is through the roof, and yet he's just been able to weed his way through like 4 or so innings and then pass it off to a bullpen that is not necessarily so great. They do pick up Miguel Castro. They've got Andrew Chafin. And I liked from last year Kyle Nelson, but I'm just not necessarily impressed by the bullpen. I'm not necessarily impressed by Dre Jemison. I feel like he's getting incredibly lucky, and I think that Jordan Montgomery certainly is going to be able to outduel him in this spot. Montgomery thus far this season, a 2.45 ERA. Ever since he's been able to get to St. Louis, he's been able to do a rock-solid job with right around a 3 ERA in a Cardinals uniform. His strikeout-to-walk rate, that is north of 4, and for Jordan Montgomery, it's all about just being able to keep the ball in the yard. Sometimes he does give up a little bit too much hard contact, but for the Arizona Diamondbacks, this is not a team that really drives the ball out too much. You do have Christian Walker that last year had 30-plus home runs. He's been struggling, though. He and Alec Thomas, both hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 right now, haven't gotten a lot of power out of Christian Walker. It's been a lot of guys that you wouldn't necessarily expect to hit that have been hitting, as Gerardo Perdomo along with Nick Ahmed. Both of these guys are hitting north of a 300. Pavin Smith is hitting right around a 330. You've had Josh Rojas really move the line for the team. Meanwhile, Lourdes Gurriel, Ketel Marte have had a little bit of a rough go of it to begin the season. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, you haven't gotten a lot of home runs out of Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, and Goldschmidt got a little bit of a day off from the starting lineup yesterday, but both of these guys are hitting well north of a 300. Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan, Jordan Walker, Lars Nootbaar, Tommy Edman, all guys hitting in that fold of about a 250 to a 270, so they're moving the line. And Nolan Gorman, 4 home runs entering into yesterday. He's been solid. I do like this Cardinals bullpen much more than the Arizona Diamondbacks. Feels like Ryan Helsley is starting to get back into his good form that we saw last season. Genesis Cabrera, Giovanni Gallegos, these guys do a good job of being able to lock it down as well. So I do think that the Cardinals should be able to take it to Dre Jemison and company. I think that Jemison, his luck has run out. Set my total at 8.8. Even though it's going to be a little bit of a cooler day in the Midwest, I'm going to be willing to go over. And when it comes to St. Louis Cardinals, I'm going to be willing to take them on the run line at a plus price. 905, 906 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies play against the Pittsburgh Pirates as Vince Velasquez is going to be going for the Buccos, and Jose Urena is going to be on the bump for Colorado. Colorado anywhere between a -104 to a -110 favorite. You're finding Pittsburgh anywhere between even money and -110. 12 is the total. Over and under are both at -110, and I don't think that that's high enough for this total. I set my total at a 12.9, and this is going to come down to late night line movement because everyone currently has this game as a pick'em. I set the Rockies at a -104, so if the Rockies get to about even money going to be willing to fire in there. If I'm able to get a plus price on the Pittsburgh Pirates, willing to fire in there. So I'm just waiting upon how this line is going to be moving in general, because I do think that this is a rather toss-up game between two teams that stink. You've got Jose Urena, who has been Urenaing all over his ERA. A 9.90 ERA. That is not too terrific. He's given up 5 home runs in his 3 starts thus far this season. His walks per 9 rate is currently north of 7. And then you've got Vince Velasquez, who his entire career has just been a pit of sadness, as he's got a career 4.94 ERA. This guy gives up rockets, but I will say for Vince Velasquez, he's coming off of giving up no runs in 6 innings against the St. Louis Cardinals. Prior to that, he had given up 5 runs in 2 2/3 innings against the Chicago White Sox. So it's been the best of times, and it's been the worst of times for our good friend Vinny Velo last season when he was on the road away from Chicago at a 4.68 ERA. Only allowed about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, but now he has to go to Coors Field, and Colorado always has the most demonstrative home and road splits in the league. Last year, they were the only team to score fewer than 3 runs per game on the road. No other team scored fewer than 3.4 runs per game, and they led the big leagues in terms of runs per game. At home, you're going to expect just darn near everyone for Colorado at about 50 points higher at home rather than on the road. You've got Chris Bryant, Charlie Blackmon, Elias Diaz, all these guys hitting north of a 275 when they're at home. On the road, it's been terrible. Meanwhile, for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Brian Reynolds entered into yesterday with 15 RBI, 5 bombs, and hitting above a 300. You've got Connor Joe, the former Colorado Rocky, along with a guy in Rodolfo Castro, hitting a 333, but Bond the Fold is not doing it for this team. Cabrian Hayes, Austin Edges, Yu Chang. You're able to throw in there so many guys like a G-Man Choi, Mark Mathis. These are all guys that are hitting below a 220 right now for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and both of these bullpens stink on ice. Chase Young is currently on the injured list for the Pittsburgh Pirates. You still have David Benarb, which is relatively solid. And I do think that you're going to be able to get some good innings out of Colin Holderman as well. For the Colorado Rockies, they do pick up Brad Hand in the offseason. That is very helpful for this team, and I like the pick up of Brent Suter as well, but they're currently without Daniel Bard, their main closer. Jake Bird is off full-time block. You only utilize him as a long guy, and he's not a guy that you necessarily trust in as well. I think that both of these bad starting pitchers are going to give up a lot of runs. I set my total at 12.9, so looking at the over, and at current numbers, I'd be willing to lay minus 104 and absolutely not a cent more with the Colorado Rockies, as I did set them at a minus 104. So I personally am going to be waiting to see which team I'm able to get pretty much even money / plus money on in terms of this money line, and I'm going to be taking a look at the over. 907, 908 on the betting board. It is the Slam Diego Padres playing us to the Atlanta Braves. Spencer Strider is going to be going for the Bravos, and Blake Snell is on the one for San Diego. 7.5 is the total. Over and under anywhere between minus 105 and minus 115 with the Atlanta Braves. They're anywhere between minus 132 and minus 140 favorites, and we're between plus 120 and plus 125. Your number on San Diego. I did set my total at 7.6, so here at a 7.5, I am going to be taking a look at the over, and with the Braves, made them a minus 114 favorite. Now that we are north of plus 115, pretty much across the board on the Padres, I'm going to be willing to ride with them on the money line. Blake Snell has been better at home than he has been on the road in recent seasons, and for Spencer Strider, I do fear that he might get knocked out of this game a little bit early, because the one thing that sometimes does elude him is command. Since coming up to the big league level, he does have a little bit north of 3 walks per 9 innings. Thus far this season, it's been 4.5 walks per 9 innings. Now, swing and miss stuff is absolutely remarkable with him. In his past 2 seasons, he's been able to get north of 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, but Blake Snell always gets good swing and miss stuff as well. He's got north of 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings the past 2 seasons, and it's been a rough go of it for him thus far this season, giving up 11 runs in 13 innings. I do think that he's going to be able to find it once again, though, and it feels like the San Diego Padres, their bullpen issues, they're starting to be able to get past them, as well as you've got Steven Wilson, who had a sub-3 ERA last season. Tim Hill, he's relatively solid, and the big key is just being able to get to Josh Hader, who's become just, once again, one of the most dominant closers in the big leagues. Lost it a little bit in 2022, but he's back in good form. And for the San Diego Padres, it's all about getting production in the middle of the lineup, because Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, they've been able to deliver, especially Bogaerts, hitting a 350 with 4 home runs entering into yesterday. Manny Machado hitting about a 250. You expect a little bit more out of him, but Juan Soto is the guy that needs to pick it up. He's been drawing walks, but entered into yesterday with a .172 average. You just need more out of a guy that you spent so much money on, because you do have someone like an Awesome Kim, who's been able to hit about a 250 for this team. bottom of the fold guys like Austin Nola, Matt Carpenter, and company, they just have not been able to deliver. And for the Atlanta Braves, they've been a little bit top heavy this season as well. Now, the top has been very good as Matt Olson, Austin Riley, along with Ronald Acuna Jr., all hitting above 300 entering into yesterday. And for Olson, he had the lowest average of those three, but has slugged out 5 home runs since spring training. He has been amazing, but they're dealing with the injury to Orlando Arcia along with Michael Harris. So, I've been having to trot out there Marcell Ozuna, Eddie Rosario. Both of guys have not been able to deliver much, especially Ozuna. Ozuna currently has 2 home runs and 3 total hits over the course of 40 at-bats entering into Monday. That is not necessarily too terrific. Austin Riley has been tremendous in terms of being able to move the line for the team, but after you get past your top 5, top 6 with this Atlanta Braves team, it has been a little bit top heavy. And for the Braves, number 4 in terms of bullpen ERA a season ago, but they do have some amazing bullpen pieces like Jesse Chavez. Kirby Yates is a guy that was pitching for the Padres many years ago and was very solid with the Padres. I do like Dylan Lee, Joe Menes in this bullpen. I do think that they've got a little bit of an edge there, but I do think that Blake Snell is going to be able to find it a little bit more here at home. Big thing with both of these guys is command, and I do think that both of these guys are going to get a little bit loose. Both of these offenses are very formidable, so being able to get a 7.5, I'm going to be looking at the over. Set my total at 7.6, and with the Padres, anything north of a plus 115, willing to dive in on their money line. 909, 910 on the betting board. It is the LA Dodgers, and they're playing us to the New York Metropolitans. Says Tyler McGill is going to be going for the Mets, and Clayton Kershaw is on the bump for the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are between minus 160 to minus 165 favorites, between plus 140 and plus 150. Your number on the Mets. 8 is the total. Over is between minus 110 to a minus 120. Under is anywhere between even to minus 110. If you're looking at that Dodgers run line, anywhere between plus 125 and plus 130, and that is what's calling my name. I did set the Dodgers minus 172 on the money line, but I was willing to take them pretty much at a minus 105 or better on the run line. With the LA Dodgers, something that I've been very mindful of with them, and I talked about with Thom Cunningham, the way that they win 2-run games. They've won 120 regular season games since the beginning of the 2022 season. This was entering into Monday, by the way. All but 18 of them have been by multiple runs. And Clayton Kershaw, he does give up the deep ball actually a little bit more at home rather than on the road. You take a look at his 2022 numbers, and at a 2.39 home ERA compared to a 2.17 ERA on the road, giving up about 0.9 home runs per 9 innings at home compared to more like 0.6 on the road, and that's been consistent for him really since the beginning of the 2020 season. And he does go up against someone in Tyler McGill who's 3-0, looking very solid this year, but he is someone that you fear is going to get shelled on the road. Last year at a 5.84 road ERA, giving up 5 home runs in 24 2/3 innings, so it was a relatively small sample size, but that's an issue, especially with the Mets dealing with the injury to Edwin Diaz in the bullpen. They don't have as many guys that are able to hold down the fourth. They're looking to guys like Jimmy Yacobonis, Edwin Uceta to be able to fill some innings out. Denny Reyes has been good as a long guy in the bullpen. Brooks Raley, David Robertson, they're able to hold games down in the back half along with Adam Ottavino. But for the LA Dodgers, they had the top bullpen ERA in the National League last season with a lot of nameless, faceless guys like Evan Phillips, Alex Vesia, Yancy Almonte, Caleb Ferguson, all had a sub-3.3 ERA. And for the Dodgers, they are feeling the loss of Gavin Lux. They are currently dealing with trying to move on from Justin Turner down for what, but they still have a lot of pieces in this lineup. You have Max Muncy, who entered into yesterday with 6 home runs, not hitting for average, but hitting for power. Chris Taylor, Trace Thompson, both of these guys have been able to deliver 4 home runs apiece entering into yesterday. Freddie Freeman sitting above a 300, so you still have some nice bats in this lineup. And for the New York Mets, it's been slow going for them as well. For their first 18 home runs of the season, 8 have been supplied by Pete Alonso, who's starting out the year magnificently once again, but Eduardo Escobar, Tomas Nido, Daniel Vogelbach, Mark Canha, all these guys are currently hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Jeff McNeil entered into yesterday with a 220 average, so these guys have had a little bit of a tough start to the season. I do think that Kershaw is going to go out there, be vintage Clayton Kershaw. He's not quite the guy that he used to be, but still able to get some good swings and misses. Does a good job of being able to lock it down in terms of walks. Tyler McGill, meanwhile, 7 walks in his first 16 innings of the season. So I did set my total at an 8.1. Here, being able to get an 8, I'm going to be taking a look at the over in this spot. And with the LA Dodgers, I'm going to take them on the run line. I do think that they get to McGill and this bullpen. Here's the first of our 2 double dips. This is going to be 9-11, 9-12 in conjecture with 9-33, 9-34 on the betting board. The Detroit Tigers, they're going to be playing against the Cleveland Guardians. The first game is actually going to be 9-33, 9-34, which is the game that is going to be game 1 of this double dip between Hunter Gaddis and Matthew Boyd. And then game number 2, which we're going to be doing in a few minutes, that is going to be Eduardo Rodriguez going for the Detroit Tigers, and Peyton Battenfield is going to be going for the Cleveland Guardians as of right now. In terms of the opener on Battenfield along with Eduardo Rodriguez. I'm seeing the Tigers anywhere between a +110 to a -115. There's a lot of murkiness with this regard, so I'm just going to give you guys my handicap on this one. Meanwhile, the Guardians versus the Detroit Tigers game, that is going to be going first. Gaddis versus Matthew Boyd. You may recall this was a DK Nation write-up pick that I did have for Monday, and when this was pulled off the board, this was being listed with the Cleveland Guardians being between about a -120 to a -125 favorite, between +105 to a +115 on Detroit with a total of 8 shaded to the over. And I really didn't make any changes. And as long as we get this same pitching matchup, my write-up is going to stand. So I'm going to keep this one a little bit more succinct. But with the Guardians, I'm willing to lay up to -155 with Gaddis on the mound. And on the 8, I'm going to be taking a look at the under because the Guardians, ever since the All-Star break of the 2022 season, they've got the #1 bullpen ERA in the big leagues. I do think that they're going to be able to do a rock-solid job with this regard. And you take a look at Matthew Boyd, and he's just someone that you don't really want to be relying upon. Heck, even if it's Eduardo Rodriguez, I'd be still willing to stick with this write-up, so you're going to get a 2-for-1 in this spot. But for Matthew Boyd, ever since the All-Star break of the 2019 season, he's got an ERA that's hovering right around 5, giving up nearly 2 home runs per 9 innings. And then if you do get Eduardo Rodriguez, because I'm seeing varying reports that it might be Eduardo Rodriguez in Game 1 rather than Game 2, but for Rodriguez, he led the league in walks in the 2019 campaign and just has not been able to find it with the Detroit Tigers while he was with the Boston Red Sox, right around 9.5 punch-outs per 9 innings, down to about 6.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. It just feels like he doesn't have that same electricity in his arm right now. And for Hunter Gaddis, yes, he does have a 12.15 ERA, but at the same time, all but one of those starts came against playoff teams over the last 2 seasons, and the one time that he got a bummy team in the Oakland A's, he completely shut them down, giving up 1 hit and 6 scoreless innings. And if you take a look at the minor league numbers of Gaddis, he had about a 4.03 ERA last season, getting 11.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's going up against a Detroit Tigers lineup that is dead last in the league on on-base plus slugging, dead last in the league in terms of batting average at a 208. As a matter of fact, you've got one guy that has seen north of 10 at-bats this season hitting above a 238, and Akil Baddoo is currently hitting at 250. You just have been able to get nothing going whatsoever. Nick Maton has been able to give this team 3 home runs, but this entire Tigers lineup has not been able to hold up their end of the bargain. The Javi Baez deal has been a big giant Buster-Rooney. Riley Green, he's able to move the line a little bit, but this is just not a bunch that's very good. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Guardians, they're going to now have a rested bullpen with guys like James Karinchak, Emmanuel Clase, Nick Sandlin, Trevor Stephen, all on call in this one. So I do like the Cleveland Guardians with Hunter Gaddis on the mound, whether that is going to be against Eduardo Rodriguez or if that is going to be Matthew Boyd. Right now, MLB.com and the betting board says Matthew Boyd, but either way, I'm going to be sticking with that DK Nation write-up pick. And if we do get Battenfield against Eduardo Rodriguez, I am going to be willing to back the Guardians as long as I'm getting pretty much even money or better. I set the Guardians as a very slight -102 favorite, and this would be a spot where in 8 or less I'd be looking at the over, 8.5 higher to the under, because I mentioned Rodriguez's struggles, and for Peyton Battenfield, he was not necessarily much of a strikeout guy at the minor league level. His first start actually went surprisingly swimmingly at the big league level. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be able to sustain, and I think that even the Detroit Tigers might be able to get to him a little bit. You've got to figure that Xavier Curry, he's probably going to be an option to be able to give you a little bit of long relief, but you take a look at Battenfield at the minor league level during the 2022 campaign, 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.3 walks per 9, a 3.63 ERA in a league that, quite frankly, is not a juice ball league to say the least, and I do think the Cleveland Guardians are going to be able to get into the Tigers bullpen in terms of both of these games because they do a nice job of moving the line. They are not a team that is going to be thumping out a lot of home runs. As a matter of fact, they are dead last in the American League in terms of home runs, but you've got Ahmed Rosario, Jose Ramirez, coupled with Steven Kwan, Andres Jimenez, Will Brandon, Oscar Gonzalez, that all had at least a 270 last season. Josh Bell seems to be rounding into form right now as well, so I do think that Cleveland is going to be able to dive into a Detroit Tigers bullpen that now they're going to have to pitch 18 innings, and they don't have the trustworthy guys like Andrew Chafin, like a Michael Fulmer, throw in there Gregory Soto from last season. Instead, you get Jason Foley, Mason Engler, guys like this. They still have Jose Cicerno from last season, but Trey Wingenter, not someone I necessarily want to back. In terms of Battenfield versus Rodriguez, relative pick'em game, set the Guardians at a -102, 7.2, 8 or less. Looking at the over 8.5 or higher to the under with Matthew Boyd versus Hunter Gaddis. A 7.5 or less looking over 8 or higher to the under. I set the Guardians minus 155. If we do see Rodriguez and Matthew Boyd get swapped, I think that Rodriguez is between a 10 to a 15 cent upgrade there, so I'm going to change the numbers a little bit if we see something other than the matchups I laid out, but that's what I'm taking a look at right now. 8-13, 8-14 on the betting board. The LA Angels hit the road face-off against the New York Yankees as Jose Suarez gets a start for the Halos, and Clark Schmidt is on the bump for the New York Yankees, and the Yankees, they are favorites of between minus 126 and minus 132. Meanwhile, between plus 110 and plus 122, your number on the Halos. 9 is your total. Unders any between minus 110 to a minus 115. Overs any between minus 105 and minus 110. And with the LA Angels, I did set them as an underdog of plus 138. I'm going to be willing to lay it with the New York Yankees. Clark Schmidt has been far from impressive as a starter this year, giving up 10 runs in 10 and 2/3 innings. I do think that he's going to round into form last year, exclusively coming out of the bullpen. Had a 2.49 home ERA. A limited 25 and a third inning sample size, but he's given up right around 1 home run per 9 innings. His walks per 9 rate was a little bit high, but he did a good job of being able to keep contact down. His general opponent's rating a $186 off of him. And for Jose Suarez, he actually had a very good second half of the season last year. He's been getting destroyed here in the early part of the campaign, and it just feels like Jose Suarez has just never really been able to put it together. Now, he's still a relatively young guy. He is just 25 years old, but at the same time, I do have my question marks here, along with him having to deal with a bullpen that had to get 21 outs yesterday. So that is a big, giant issue. Now, the Angels bullpen has actually not been terrible. As you take a look at the Angels bullpen, and they're 11th in bullpen ERA towards the beginning part of this season. They were 11th in bullpen ERA after the All-Star break last season. So I don't want to hear the slander about the Angels bullpen. They've actually been halfway decent. And for Suarez, in his last 11 starts of the regular season last year, he had a 2.81 ERA, giving up 5 home runs in 64 innings. His strikeouts per 9 rate, that was hovering right in the neighborhood of 8, was able to keep the walks down. Thus far this season, though, that has not been the same. And for the LA Angels, got to feel like this is just a bad scheduling spot in general. They had to start first pitch at 8:10 a.m. Pacific time yesterday, and then they had to wait around quite a bit for that rain delay, so they're a little bit out of sorts right now. You do have quite a few guys moving the line. Gio Urshela sitting above a 300. We all know that Joey Ohtani, Mike Trout, they're going to get on base. Both of these guys north of a 385 on base, 3 home runs apiece, and Logan O'Hoppe has been able to give you 4 home runs. Thus far, you do have a few guys like Jake Lamb, David Fletcher and company that do need to pick it up, but by and large, they've been able to do a solid job on that front. And for the New York Yankees, we all know the all-or-nothing nature of this lineup is you've got Giancarlo Stanton, Anthony Rizzo, Aaron Judge. A combined between the three of them, 13 home runs thus far this season. You got Judge and Rizzo, both providing north of a 380 on base. For Giancarlo Stanton, he's hitting at 269, significantly up from last season. Gleyber Torres off to a nice season as well, north of a 400 on base. DJ LeMahieu is able to move the line, so the Yankees have become a little bit less all or nothing, and I do like the Yankees bullpen a bit more in this spot. Now, Clay Holmes, he has just not been good for this New York Yankees team, but you've got Ron Marinaccio, along with Wandy Peralta, doing a nice job holding it down. Albert Abreu is someone that I do like in this bullpen as well, so I do think that the Yankees are going to be able to provide Clark Schmidt with quite a bit of relief, and I do think that the Angels are going to get lit up a little bit in this spot. I think that Schmidt is going to get lit up a little bit as well. Recognize that it's not necessarily the world's greatest playing conditions in the northeast part of the country. It's a little bit cooler, but I still think that with the dimensions of Yankee Stadium, there are going to be balls flying out of the yard. Semi-total a little bit north of 9 at a 9.2, so going to be looking at the over in this ordeal. And with the Yankees, want to lay up to a minus 138 with them on the money line. If you're looking at the run line, currently you're finding that at about a plus 145 or so. Would need closer to a plus 150, so I'm going to play it safe on the money line to go along with the total over 915, 916 on the betting board. The Boston Red Sox play host to the Minnesota Twins, as Sonny Gray is going to be going for the Twinkies, and Chris Sale is on the bump for Boston. In Boston, they are anywhere between minus 105 to plus 102 underdogs. Meanwhile, between minus 108 to minus 115, your price on Minnesota. 9 is the total. Over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. Did set by total at an 8.3. Going to be willing to go under in this ordeal. For the Boston Red Sox, they actually really didn't have to dive into their bullpen because they just utilized Cutter Crawford as pretty much a piggyback starter after that rain delay for Brian Bayo. He went 6+ innings and was masterful for this team, so everyone in this bullpen is relatively rested. Now, it's not a great bullpen. The numbers say that they're currently in the top 12 in terms of ERA. My rear end on that, because you've got Richard Blyer, Ryan Brazier, Caleb Ort, you know, go down the list of guys that are less than trustworthy. I like John Schreiber, but with Kenley Jansen, we all know that things are an adventure with him, but I like the way that the Twins are pitching. They enter into this game number 1 in the league in terms of overall ERA between their starters and their relievers. Their bullpen has been solid with having Yohan Duran throwing 100-plus miles per hour, Jorge Alcala, Giovanni Morin. I think that this is one of the best trios that you're going to find in a bullpen in the big leagues. They have Ore Lopez as well, and then for the Minnesota Twins, not a team that necessarily has a bunch of thumpers. They've been dealing with the injury to Joey Gallo, but they've got a lot of guys that do a solid job of just being able to move the line, like Trevor Larnach is sitting about at 250 for you. Byron Buxton, it's been a little bit of a rough go for him recently. I do think that he's going to be able to pick it up by Christian Vasquez, Donovan Solano. Both of these guys are hitting north of a 300. Kyle Farmer, I think, is going to be able to pick it up. He's hitting just at 225 this year, and he has been dealing with some injuries, so he's probably going to be out the full once again in this one, but I think once he gets back, he's going to be able to do a solid job. But you've got Jose Miranda, who last year was able to hit about a 250 for the team. Meanwhile, for the Boston Red Sox, they've been dealing with the injury to Adam Duvall, so that has caused this team to be very top-heavy with their lineup. Rafael Devers, 7 home runs, hitting at 275. He's been amazing. Alex Verdugo sitting north of a 300 as well. And Justin Turner, it's been a little bit up and down for him. He's had just 1 home run this season, but right around a 380 on base. But you take a look at these dead bats like Tristan Casas, Kike Hernandez. Throw in there the new guy that comes in Masataka Yoshida, Christian Wong, Yu Chang. You're able to go down the list of guys hitting below 200. Bobby Dahlbeck just has never been able to develop for the team, and I do think that Sonny Gray is going to be able to go out there and throw a gem. He's made 3 starts thus far this season, 1 run surrendered in 17 innings. The walks have been a little bit elevated, but his swing and miss stuff is nice. He's always been a guy that hovers right around 10 punch-outs per 9 innings, and has always been a relatively good performer on the road. Last season, he did have a 3.63 road ERA, giving up about 1 home run per 9 innings. He got a little bit unlucky on that front. I do think that he's going to be able to iron that out, look a little bit more like what he did 2 years ago, where his road ERA was 3.44, while his home ERA was well north of 4. So I do think that Sonny Gray is going to be able to go out there and deliver. And for Chris Sale, I just think that this guy is damaged goods at this point. 12 innings pitched, and he's got an ERA of at 11.25 this year. He was unable to stay out there on the field last year. Very unfortunate injury, but this guy does not look like himself right now. Giving up 5 home runs in 12 innings. This guy is just gassed, in my opinion. So I did set the Minnesota Twins as a favorite of -122, willing to ride with the Twinkies. I do think that Sale's going to be able to pick it up a little bit, and there is a rested bullpen for the Boston Red Sox. So my total at 8.3, diving under, and I'm going to be willing to ride with the Minnesota Twins, 917, 918 on the betting board. It is the Walker Texas Rangers on the road facing off against the Kansas City Royals, as Brad Keller goes for the Royals, and Nathan Eovaldi is on the bump for Texas. Texas between a -118 to a -125 favorite, anywhere between +105 and +110. Your number on Kansas City, 8.5 is the total. Over and under both at -110, and when it comes to the Royals, I need at least a +130 to be able to fire in on them. Now, the Texas Rangers bullpen, a little bit more taxed than expected because, shock, surprise, surprise, Jacob deGrom had to leave his start early yesterday. Where have we seen this movie before? But still, this Texas Rangers bullpen has been able to do a relatively solid job, as you've got a trio of guys in Jonathan Hernandez, Jose Leclerc, Brock Burke, that all had a sub-3 ERA last season. Cole Reagans is a starter by trade that has found a home in the bullpen as well. And for Nathan Eovaldi, he gives up a lot of contact, really, since the beginning of the 2014 season. Opponents are getting a little bit north of a 260 off of him, and he did have a less than savory start last time out against the Kansas City Royals at home. In that start, he gave up 6 runs over the course of 5 innings, but this is also a Royals lineup that is, I would say, a bottom 5 lineup in the big leagues. You take a look at how they entered into the game yesterday. You've got Matt Duffy along with Bobby Witt Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino moving the line. Aside from these 3 guys, you don't have a single guy that has gotten at least 1 at-bat this year, hitting at least at 233. It is not good, to say the least. You don't have a lot of power with this team. Pasquantino has been able to give you 3 home runs, but overall, the team had 3 home runs in their first 16 games of the season. You got so many guys like Hunter Dozier, Michael Massey, Jackie Bradley Jr., Nate Eaton, MJ Melendez, all below a $180 right now. For the Kansas City Royals, this really isn't a good bullpen. Scott Barlow is someone I like at a sub-3 ERA last season, and Taylor Clark has come into his own as a reliever as well. They get back Josh Shamon, who was terrible last season. I expect him to be better this year, but Aroldis Chapman, he's long in the tooth. Meanwhile, for the Texas Rangers, they've been trying to mix and match with their lineup as well, because Corey Seager, he is currently out of the fold, and Marcus Semien, back-to-back days with a home run for him. That's big. Josh Young has been tremendous for this team. He's hitting nearly a 300. Jonah Heim is hitting nearly a 300. Been able to get a little bit of something out of someone like Travis Janikowski, but bottom full with guys like Leody Taveras, Robbie Grossman, throwing there the young shortstop and Josh Smith. They do need to pick it up quite a bit. So you do have your falters there. And for Brad Keller, it does feel like a little bit of a new look Brad Keller this season. He's never been necessarily a strikeout guy, so 16 strikeouts in 17 innings thus far this season. I do think that there is going to be a little bit of regression. What Brad Keller has always done a good job of is being able to keep the ball in the yard. Last season, he did give up more like 1.2 to 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, but overall for his career, about 0.8 or so home runs per 9 innings. Has always been much more dominant at home rather than on the road. I do think that there's going to be a bit of regression here. He's still giving up right around 4 walks per 9 innings, so that does have me feeling a little bit tepid about the Royals in this spot. And I do think that you're going to get some runs, much like the first time these two guys took the hill. Set my total at 8.6, so you're at an 8.5. Going to be looking at the over, and with the Rangers, want to lay up to a minus 130 on their money line. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Houston Astros play host to the Toronto Blue Jays. Chris Bassett has the hook, line, and sinker for the Jays, and Jose Urquidy is on the bump for Houston. Relative pick'em game here, with the Toronto Blue Jays are anywhere between minus 102 to a minus 110. With the Astros, you're finding them anywhere between a minus 102 to a minus 110, with 9 being your total. The over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and I did set the Astros as a favorite of minus 119 in this ordeal, so I'm going to be taking a look at Houston. I do think that Jose Urquidy is starting to find a little bit more swing and miss stuff. He was able to come into his own with that towards back half of the season last year, 13 punch-outs in 15 and third innings thus far this season. Urquidy typically has really good command, but he's always been very fascinating with the way that he has been a little bit less effective at home rather than on the road. Last season, 4.17 home ERA compared to a 3.74 ERA on the road, and the big thing was the deep ball. He was giving up right around 1.8 home runs per 9 innings at home, but Chris Bassett it just has not been in good form thus far this season. Watching him in that start against the LA Angels in person, he looked very uncomfortable with the pitch clock, got multiple pitch clock violations in that, and he's been giving up rockets when he's been on the road. 9 and a third innings on the road. He's given up 5 home runs, 5 walks in that span. He is very lucky that he hasn't given up more than he has, in all honesty. His strikeout numbers are down. His velocity, it's not necessarily as good as it was a season ago as well, and it feels like the Houston Astros starting to come into their own. That Sunday Night Baseball loss was probably a wake-up call for them because they absolutely took it to the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday, and it feels like Alex Bregman is going to start to get online as well. He always has rough starts the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, hitting right around the Mendoza line of a 200, but you've got Yordan Alvarez, you've got Kyle Tucker, both with between 3 and 4 home runs apiece. Both of these guys supplying north of a 375 on base. Jeremy Pena took a little bit of time to get going, but it feels like he's starting to get going. You've also been able to have some of the younger guys like a Corey Julks be able to give you a nice jolt. Mauricio Dubon is hitting above a 300 for the Toronto Blue Jays. They entered into yesterday number 2 in the American League in terms of batting average. They haven't necessarily gotten a lot of home runs. You've got Matt Chapman, who's been able to supply 4 home runs this season, and he's hitting a very unsustainable north of 400 right now. But you've got Bo Bichette, Guerrero Jr. Bichette has been able to give you 4 home runs, but Guerrero hasn't necessarily gone deep. But both of these guys are hitting in that neighborhood about a 375 right now. Now, you've got a couple dead bats for the Toronto Blue Jays. Brandon Belt, Danny Jansen, Kevon Biggio all got at bats yesterday. All these guys hitting below the Mendoza line of a 200. Alejandro Kirk has been a little bit slow to get going at the catcher spot as well, but you know that these guys are going to be able to find it. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, Anthony Bass is right now getting dragged on social media. Folks that are whipping out their popcorn are very intrigued to see what happens with him in his next appearance. Hopefully you enjoyed the joke there, but that said, you take a look at this bullpen and it is pretty rock solid. I think that they're going to be top 10 in terms of bullpen this season, and I think that both of these bullpens are relatively the same. I recognize that the Astros had the number 1 bullpen in the big leagues last season, but I did expect a little bit of regression. You had career years out of so many guys like Seth Martinez, Brian Abreu, Ryan Stanek, Hector Neris. You're able to go down the list of guys. Ryan Presley, he's relatively rock solid, but I think that the Blue Jays match up relatively well here with guys like Adam Simber, Tim Meza, the closer, and Jordan Romano. It's something I do like, but I do like Jose Urquidy a little bit more than Bassett in this spot. Did set my total at 8.8. I think that 9 is a little bit too lofty. I think that Urquidy is going to be giving up some solo shots, but overall, it's going to be able to keep the contact down. I do think that both of these bullpens keep this total under. So I'm going to be taking a look at the under in this ordeal, and with the Astros, want to lay up to a minus 118 with them. 921, 922 on the betting board. It is the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're going to be hitting the road to face off against the Cincinnati Reds. Yes, we are on to Cincinnati, and Nick Lodolo is going to be getting the start for them. It appears as though we're going to get Taj Bradley here for the Rays. It's either going to be he or a bullpen game, and if it is Taj Bradley, you're probably going to get about 4 to 5 innings out of him. There's currently no numbers up on this game, but assuming that we do get Mr. Taj Bradley against Nick Lodolo, I did set the Tampa Bay Rays as a favorite of a minus 142. So minus 141 or less, I'm going to be willing to lay the number at a plus 143 or greater. I'd be willing to take a shot on the Cincinnati Reds and did set my total at 8.3. So 8 or less, looking at the over 8.5 or higher. Going to be taking a look at the total under. When it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays, they just weren't able to hit with men in scoring position, and they completely gassed the Cincinnati Reds bullpen yesterday because Hunter Green was only able to supply 3 innings, so you had a poo-poo platter of relievers, including Ian Gabo, Kevin Erget, along with Alex Young, all guys that have a sub-3 ERA. All of them had to throw at least 14 pitches yesterday. Now, you do have Fernando Cruz along with Alexis Diaz, who had sub-2 ERAs last season. They're going to be in the bullpen for the Reds, and I really do like what I've seen out of Nick Lodolo thus far this season. He has been incredible with 27 punch-outs over the course of 17 innings, and you knew that swing-miss stuff was there last season, but for Nick Lodolo, he's been especially good at home. Last year, a 2.85 home ERA compared to a 5.11 ERA on the road. Sometimes he's going to give up a few rockets just with the way that he throws so much heat, but at the same time, for the Tampa Bay Rays, this team does a good job of taking the wholesale approach. They had to do so yesterday with getting 3 innings out of Jalen Beeks, but they did a good job of being able to piecemeal things together where they didn't have to use up guys like a Pete Fairbanks, Jason Adam, along with Colin Pouchet. These are all guys that are going to be available, and for the Tampa Bay Rays, they're not going to hit like 350 home runs like they were on pace to going into yesterday, but you've got so many guys that are doing a good job of moving the line. Manuel Margot has actually been off to a relatively rough start to the season, but just take a look at everyone being able to fire on all cylinders. The injury to Jose Siri has been a little bit rough, but Josh Lowe, Wander Franco, Randy Arozarena, Brandon Lau, Harold Ramirez, Taylor Walls, Isaac Paredes, all these guys, other than Paredes, are hitting at least a 275 right now. And Paredes, he's been able to give you 3 home runs and was really one of the top home run hitters for the team last season. Meanwhile, for the Cincinnati Reds, they did not return a single guy that hit north of 12 home runs last season. Now, Jake Fraley, along TJ Friedel, have been able to give them some nice production in the lineup. Will Myers, he hasn't necessarily been too great for the team with about a 320 on base. You just expect a little bit more out of him, but you've been able to get some good production at the top of the fold from Jonathan India. Moving the line, he's hitting a 316. Spencer Steer, whenever he's gotten at bats, has been solid. But guys like Nick Senzel, Jose Barrero, Seth Fairchild, these are relatively dead bats. I do think that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to be able to bear down with regards to their bullpen in this spot. And for Taj Bradley, his first start was a relatively solid start. He was able to go 5 strong innings in that one. He was looking very good at the minor league level. I felt like maybe he was a tad bit inexperienced coming up as a 22-year-old, but he was able to do an okay job of holding down the fort. 8 strikeouts against the Boston Red Sox. Still did give up 3 runs. I would expect something similar in this spot, and I do think that the Rays bullpen from there, if he gives a similar start, is going to be able to hold it down. So set the Rays at a minus 142 on the money line. I would need at least a plus 120 to be able to take a look at a run line with them, 8 or less. Looking at the over 8.5 or higher to the under 923, 924 on the betting board. It is the Baltimore Orioles on the road facing off against Washington Nationals, as Josiah Gray is going to be going for the Nats, and Dean Kramer is on the bump for Baltimore. And Baltimore, anywhere between a minus 128 to a minus 135 favorite, anywhere between plus 115 and plus 122. Your number on Washington, 9.5 is the total. Under is minus 115 to minus 120. The over is anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 110. I did set Baltimore as a favorite of minus 126. If you're taking a look at their run line, you're only getting about a plus 115, and typically, I'm not one for taking a look at a run line in this ordeal, but I'm right now seeing a Washington Nationals run line of anywhere between minus 130 to a minus 135. As long as I'm getting a minus 135 or better, I'm going to be willing to take a run and a half with the Washington Nationals on that run line, just because with the Baltimore Orioles, they have been very shaky with their bullpen thus far this season. And even in the back half of last season, post All-Star break, they were in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You could tell that they're missing Jorge Lopez, who they traded away at the trade deadline. They're relying upon Ynier Cano right now for innings. Keegan Aiken is back after he was away from the team for a few days, but it's been really mix and match with this Orioles bullpen. Now, the Orioles lineup, they are out there and they are able to mash, as you've been able to have great production out of Ryan Mountcastle. Had 30-plus home runs 2 seasons ago. He's already got 6 bombs thus far this season, not necessarily hitting for average, but you've got Austin the Say's Kid, Orde Mateo, and Adley Rushman, laying at least a 344, with Rushman being able to supply 4 home runs thus far this season. And the team as a whole, they've got a 357 on base, but take a look at the Nationals. The big thing that is right now just holding them back is a lack of power. They've got 8 home runs. That is at the bottom of the National League right now. Jameer Candelario has 3 of them, so that's a bit of an issue. But you do have guys that are able to move the line for this team. Lane Thomas, Victor Robles, the aforementioned Candelario are all hitting at least a 280 for this team. They've been able to draw a few walks, so there is some signs of brightness there. I do think that Michael Chavis, someone that they picked up as he was with the Boston Red Sox Sox, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that he was on my high school team as well because, this guy has been very well traveled. I think that he's going to be able to pick it up. And for the Washington Nationals, ever since the All-Star break of 2022, this has been a top 10 bullpen in terms of ERA, as you've got Erasmo Ramirez, Mason Thompson, Carl Edwards Jr., all supplying a sub-3.3 ERA since the back half of last season. Hunter Harvey, the former Baltimore Oriole, has been able to do a solid job, and I just don't have any faith in Dean Kremer whatsoever. He had a relatively solid 2022 season by the numbers, but he got incredibly lucky. He's never been too much of a swing and miss guy overall for his career. Fewer than 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's someone that gives up a lot of hard contact, as he's given up for his career north of 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. He's already been shelved for 5 bombs in his 3 starts thus far this season, coming off of giving up 4 runs in 4 1/3 innings against the Oakland A's. And Josiah Gray, he is 0-3, but he's pitched much more respectably in his last 2 starts. He goes to Coors Field, gives up 1 run in 6 innings. Problem is, the Washington Nationals couldn't score a single run in Coors Field. As a matter of fact, Josiah Gray has made 3 starts, and they've provided him with 1 run of support. I'm thinking that he's going to get a little bit more run support moving forward rather than the average of 0.33 that he's gotten thus far this season, but he's really been able to put it together. Now, his big bugaboo was actually at home last year. 6.12 home ERA compared to a 4.11 ERA on the road, and that's because he was giving up well north of 2 home runs per 9 innings, but last season as well, he was walking quite a few guys, right around 4 walks per 9 innings thus far this season. He's been able to lock that down a little bit more, 5 walks in 16 2/3 innings. I do like the way that Josiah Gray has been able to come into his own. I just don't know if the Washington Nationals provide enough offense to be able to get this done outright, but at a minus 135 or less, I'm going to be willing to take a 1.5 with the Washington Nationals. I would need to get more around about a plus 128 to be able to dive in on their money line, but did set my total at 9.3 as well. So looking at the under, and I'm going to be taking a look at the Washington Nationals getting a 1.5. This is the other of our double dips, 925, 926, in conjunction with 931, 932 on the betting board. It is the Chicago White Sox playing us to the Philadelphia Phillies. Game number 1, 931, 932. It's Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler going for the Phillies, and Lance Lynn on the bump for the White Sox. Game number 2, it is Bailey Falter hoping to not live up to his name for the Phillies, and Lucas Giolito on the bump for the White Sox. DraftKings has numbers on both of these. Let's go with Lynn and Wheeler first, with the Phillies minus 135 favorites, plus 115 on the Chicago White Sox. Total on this game 7.5. The under is minus 120, and the over is even. And I did set the White Sox at a minus 104. I'm going to be willing to ride with them on the money line. I did set my total at 8.1, so also taking a look at the over. Zach Wheeler in the months of March and April throughout his career, north of a 4 ERA. Lance Lynn, last year, he had north of a 6 ERA in his first 2 months of the season. He has struggled thus far this season with a 7.31 ERA, having given up a combined 11 runs in his last 2 starts, and Lynn has just given up rockets since the beginning part of last season, about 1.9 home runs per 9 innings surrendered by him. And for Zach Wheeler, he just has not been as sharp when he's been on the road rather than when he's been at home, right around a 4 ERA in his road starts over the last 2 seasons, so that is really ailing him. And for Zach Wheeler, command has not been there for really both of these guys. Both of these guys have went between 15 2/3 innings and 16 innings. They've both given up 7 walks in those innings, so it's been an issue for both of them. But both of these guys are getting strikeouts. 21 punch-outs for Lynn, 18 punch-outs for Zach Wheeler, and both of these teams backed up by terrible bullpens. The Philadelphia Phillies in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. The White Sox are dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. So, it's sort of like looking in the mirror and seeing the alternate Spider-Man in terms of that gift right now for the Philadelphia Phillies. As for the Phillies, Jose Alvarado has actually been really good in the bullpen. I've got to give him a little bit of credit, but Gregory Soto has come over, has not been able to find himself. So Anthony Dominguez, he's been hot and cold all season long. Craig Kimbrell just should not be on an MLB roster right now. Connor Brogdon, Andrew Bellotti, it's hard to have faith in them. And for the Chicago White Sox, got a lot of guys like Jimmy Lambert, Aaron Bummer, Reynaldo Lopez, Jake Diekman, who all had a sub-3.5 ERA last season, that have just hit the toilet bowl thus far this season. Tanner Banks has not been very good. But for the Chicago White Sox, the team is number 3 in the American League in terms of batting average. Andrew Benintendi hit right around a 300 last year. He, Luis Robert, throw in there Andrew Vaughn. They're all hitting between about a 270 to 280. You've got Tim Anderson, Yasmani Grandal, Yohan Moncada is now on the injured list, only between about a 295 to a 310. Gavin Sheets has been able to find himself hitting above a 300. Jake Berger, 3 home runs in his last 3 games. Luis Robert has been able to go deep 5 times. Not necessarily a White Sox team providing a lot of power, but they're moving the line. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, much of the same for them. Kyle Schwarber has 4 home runs, sitting for only about a 230, but this Phillies team right now leads the league in batting average, as Alec Bohm, Brandon Marsh, Bryson Stott, along with Trey Turner down for what, all hitting at least a 330 for the team. Not necessarily sustainable. And so have guys like Jake Cave, Josh Harrison, that they do need to pick it up a little bit, but both of these teams have been thumping on offense. Both of these teams terrible with their bullpen. So in Wheeler versus Lynn, 8 or less looking at the over 8.5 prior to the under. And for the White Sox, set them at a minus 104, so getting a plus price. Going to be taking a look at their money line. And then when it comes to Lucas Giolito going up against Bailey Falter, this is 925, 926, a later game. White Sox are opening up a minus 115 favorite. Minus 105 is your price on the Philadelphia Phillies. And right now seeing a total of 8.5 with the over at a minus 115. The under is minus 105. And in this ordeal, I did set my total at 9.1. So as long as we're getting anything below a 9, I'm going to be taking a look at the over. And for the White Sox, I did set them at a minus 109. I think that more of when the dime lines come out, as long as the White Sox are below a minus 110, I'm going to be one to ride with them. For Bailey Falter, he actually hasn't been too bad to start out the season. I still have my trepidations and trusting in him. And in his last start against the Cincinnati Reds, we did see some regression there, giving up 5 runs in 4 2/3 innings. Last year, he only gave up right around 2 walks per 9 innings, but he just gives up a lot of contacts. Opponents hit at 263 off of him. He gave up 1.7 home runs per 9 innings, while getting right around 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Meanwhile, for Lucas Giolito, last few seasons, he's still been able to get north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. This guy has gotten completely destroyed at home, though. Go back to 2022, 6.08 home ERA, giving up right around 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. Now, good news is it's cold and windy in Chicago, so that should be able to help out these pitchers a little bit more, and that was factored in as well in the Wheeler versus Lynn start as well, or else the title would have been even higher. But I do think that both of these guys are going to struggle. Once again, you've had a pair of bullpens that have been just absolutely terrible, so as long as I'm able to get better than a minus 110 with the White Sox with Giolito on the mound, I'm going to be willing to lay it. And with this total, as long as the total is 9 or less, I'm going to be taking a look at the over. So hopefully I was able to keep that nice, clean, and easy. 927, 928 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners play host to the Milwaukee Brewers as Colin Ria is going to be going for the Brew Crew, and Logan Gilbert is on the bump for Seattle. 8 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110. Minus 150 to minus 165 is your number on Seattle. Between plus 135 and plus 140 is the price on the Milwaukee Brewers. Set this more around a minus 174 money line of the Seattle Mariners. And when you take a look at this M's run line, you're finding that anywhere between plus 125 to a plus 130. And I'm going to be willing to ride with the Mariners run line. I typically am a little bit more trepidatious, and I really don't like to lay it too much with regards to the run and a half with the Seattle Mariners, but I'm going to do it here with Ria. I feel like he just really had a lightning in a bottle start where the San Diego Padres had absolutely no idea what to expect, because this is a very well-traveled man, and it's a great story that he's back up at the big league level. But you take a look at what Colin Ria had been doing. He had spent a year or two in Japan. He had been really all over the place for the SoftBank Hawks in Japan last season. He had a 3.57 ERA, giving up right around 3 walks per 9 innings. Wasn't generating a lot of punch-outs. When he was with the Milwaukee Brewers 2 seasons ago in their AAA affiliate, he was actually doing a halfway decent job with Nashville, but at the same time, he wasn't finding a lot of success in Japan. Now he comes back to the big leagues, and he gives up 1 solo home run over the course of 5 2/3 innings against the San Diego Padres, and looks like Bob Gibson 2.0. That's just not going to be able to sustain. Meanwhile, Logan Gilbert, his swing and miss stuff looks as good as ever before. 16 2/3 innings, 20 punch-outs thus far this season. And for Logan Gilbert, he's been able to do a really nice job of being able to keep things out in front of him, doesn't give up a lot of walks, right around about 2.4 walks per 9 innings. 8 seasons ago, overall at a 3.20 ERA, actually had a little bit of higher ERA when he was at home rather than on the road. And I do think that the Seattle Mariners are starting to find themselves a little bit more in terms of their offense. Last year, they were 3rd worst in the big leagues in terms of batting average, and still have some guys that they do need to pick it up entering into Monday's game. A.J. Pollock, Colton Wong were both hitting below $150. The entire catcher spot has been very hit or miss. Cal Raleigh, only 1 home run thus far this season while hitting at 220. That's pretty unacceptable. And Eugenio Suarez, I don't think that he's going to continue at 292. He's more of a power bat, but you've been able to get a lot out of Jarrett Kelenic. Entered into yesterday with 4 home runs, hitting north of 300. That's been very nice to see. Ty France has done a tremendous job of being able to get on base. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, they're very hit or miss, averaging right around 6 runs per game at home. On the road, that's more like 4 runs per contest. And Christian Yelich just not finding that MVP form going into yesterday, hitting about a 230 with 2 home runs. Rowdy Tellez has been able to give you 5 bombs. That has been very nice to see. And Garrett Mitchell, 3 home runs. He's moving the line, providing a 340 on base. William Thomas, Brian Anderson, they're able to get on for you. But I do think that guys like a Bryce Terang are going to be seeing a little bit of regression. They've been giving starts to Joey Weimer. I've got my question marks with his bat as well. But for the Brewers, they entered into Monday number 1 in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. I don't think that they're going to be ending up number 1, but there's some nice guys out there. Peter Strzelski, along with someone like a Matt Bush, Hobie Milner, being able to get the ball to Devin Williams. I do like what I'm seeing there, and for the Seattle Mariners, they are a little bit more depleted with their bullpen because they're currently without Andres Munoz. Matt Brash has been able to do a solid job in the bullpen. I like Penn Murphy, Paul Sewell. Both of these guys had a sub-3 ERA last season, but they're trying to mix and match with guys like Justin Topa and company, and Topa's actually looked relatively solid, but I think that Logan Gilbert just completely dominates Colin Rea in this spot. I do think that for the Milwaukee Brewers, their young guys are going to have a little bit of regression in terms of their hitting, so this is a spot where I did set my total at an 8.2. I do think that Seattle gets to Milwaukee. I'm going to be willing to take Seattle on the run line, getting that plus price, laying run and a half to go along with the over, and we wrap things up with 929, 930 on the betting board. The Chicago Cubs hit the road face-off against the Oakland A's. Ken Waldichuk goes for Oakland, and Marcus Stroman is on the bump for the Cubs, and the Cubs are between minus 162 and minus 170 favorites, anywhere between plus 145 and plus 152. Your number on Oakland with the total 7.5. Overs anywhere between minus 110 to a minus 120. Unders anywhere between even a minus 110. If you're looking at an 8, seeing one of those out there as well. Unders minus 120 and the overs even. And with the Cubs, if you're looking at the run line, only have to lay a minus 105. Count me in. I was willing to lay a minus 115, and with the money line, I need at least a plus 178 to take a shot on Oakland with Waldichuk. Just really not a lot of faith in him in general. He doesn't necessarily walk a ton of guys. He's also given up 7 home runs in 15 innings thus far this season. He's not that bad that he's going to continue to give up north of 4 home runs per 9 innings, but you even go back to 2022 and he was far from great. He had a 4.93 ERA across his 7 starts, gave up 5 bombs in 34 2/3 innings, wasn't terrific at the minor league level. There's nothing to lead me to believe that Ken Waldichuk is someone that you should be trusting in. Meanwhile, with Marcus Stroman, this guy was masterful on the road, and now he's in about as pitcher-friendly of a ballpark as it gets. Last year, he had a 2.06 road ERA, giving up about 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. Opponents hit a 2.17 off of him. His swing and miss stuff has been very good this year. 20 punch-outs in 18 innings. He has surrendered 2 runs in 18 innings thus far, and he gets the gift of going up against an Oakland A's lineup that is pretty terrible. Brent Rooker has been able to get things going. He entered into yesterday hitting a 333 with 4 home runs, and you've been able to have Estudio Ruiz be able to provide north of a 300 batting average. But you take a look at some of these guys right now, like Alamendis Diaz, Ryan Noda, Tony Kemp, throw in there Kevin Smith, all these guys hitting at 215 or lower. Not necessarily terrific. Shane Langolaris to be able to give you a little bit of something, but for Oakland, they always have a batting average significantly worse at home than they do on the road, just because it is a ballpark that it's got what it is. It's on its last leg, and I think that their next ballpark is probably going to be out in lovely Las Vegas. And you take a look at this Oakland A's team entering into yesterday. They were hitting as a collective 219 at home. Meanwhile, on the road, they were hitting more like a 256. So this ballpark, it does very much play pitcher-friendly. Meanwhile, the Cubs, you don't have a lot of guys that give you a lot of thumping power. Patrick Wisdom entered into yesterday with 6 of the team's 18 home runs, but got a lot of guys that they do a good job of being able to reach base. Ian Happ, north of a 400 on base along Dansby Swanson. Swanson, 0 home runs going into yesterday, but hitting at 358. Nico Horner's hitting at 333. Whenever Nick Madrigal and Tucker Barnhart have gotten at bats, they've been hitting above a 300 as well. You've got Eric Hosmer, who's not giving you a lot of power right now, and he was badly overpaid by the Padres, but he's still a functional hitter up there at the plate. Now for the Cubs, bullpen is far from terrific. They pick up Michael Fulmer and Brad Boxberger in the offseason. I like what I've seen out of Mark Leiter Jr., Amber Alzolay, Julian Merriweather, guys like this. They're not necessarily amazing. And for the Oakland A's, currently a bottom 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. They're currently dealing with Domingo Acevedo being on the injured list. Sam Hall, Danny Jimenez, Zach Jackson all had a sub 3.5 ERA last season, but now you're having to rely upon someone like a Richard Lovelady and Chad Smith for good innings. Not a place where you want to be. So this is a circumstance where I'm willing to lay the run line of the Cubs, willing to lay up to a 115 there, and did set my total at a 7.7. I do think that the Cubs are going to be able to get to Waldichuk in this spot. And I do think that Oakland is going to be able to get a few runs off of this Cubs bullpen as well. So looking at the 7.5 over and the Cubs run line, and that'll wrap things up for the Tuesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family of Podcasts. A big thanks to our good friend Thom Cunningham over at RunYourPool.com for joining me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways to be able to fire this in. First one is my Twitter timeline at @Jaden_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM. They mean does not matter. As per usual, please just send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. I'll be coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, and that means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.